Yeah.
Like you start asking me things about like how I feel about, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't know if it's fucking like Marxism or some shit like that. And I go, oh yeah, maybe that, actually that kind of sounds good on paper.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be nice if there was a little bit more equality for people and people who had nothing had the ability to come up. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. A little light Marxism. Yeah.
Just light. Nah, you know what I mean?
In this video, Andrew Schulz sits down with Theo on his podcast. Andrew Schulz specifically calls out Hasan Piker and also says the Republican and Democrat parties aren't as different as they seem. With that, let's watch Andrew Schulz call out Hasan Piker and discuss the dynamic between the Republican and Democrat Party.
Having different voices on your pod doesn't really do anything for the people's perception of you that aren't your fans.
Wait, say it one more time so I hear it.
So we probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like we probably think like I'm going to have different voices on my podcast. And like, one, I'm curious and I want to know what they think. But two, I want to also like let the people out there in the world know, like I care about hearing from different people.
Yeah.
And I care about having diversity of thought on my podcast, right? The people that don't know you, the casuals, are just judging you by the worst thing you've ever had on your podcast.
Right.
And the worst thing you've ever said.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't realize this until recently. The best way to like thwart those perceptions of you is not by having people on your show, because the casuals don't watch your show. It's by going to your biggest critics show and sitting down with them. Or not even your biggest critic, but like going to someone who like might have a very different like worldview than you. And then you guys sit down and realize, oh shit, we actually don't have that different a worldview.
Yeah.
That was all a perception. Anyway, I think a lot of times we go, okay, we're really busy. It's like hard for us to go around and do different shows and that kind of stuff. Because I think our perception is not going like, how can I be the most famous person? Like, I don't give a fuck. I want to make the coolest stand-up that I possibly can. I want to hang out with my friends and I want to talk some shit on podcasts. Like, that's enough for me.
Yeah.
But I've realized the importance now of going to other people's homes and having those conversations. You know, like we had Hasan on our pod. It probably would have been
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
more beneficial for me to also go on his stream and talk to him and let him bring up shit that I said and like tell me and have him tell me like why I'm missing this like nuance point and be like, oh, that's interesting. Like that might actually be better for the people that barely understand me or don't even know me to have like a more holistic view of me and like understand who I am.
Right, to actually go into their world a little bit more.
Yeah, because then you find things about me that might not come up on the pod.
Yeah.
Like you start asking me things about like how I feel about, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't know if it's fucking like Marxism or some shit like that. And I go, oh yeah, maybe that, actually that kind of sounds good on paper.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be nice if there was a little bit more equality for people and people who had nothing had the ability to come up. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. A little light Marxism. Yeah.
Just light. Nah, you know what I mean? Hey, you can't.
He makes a good point. Republicans and Democrats don't go on one another's show nearly as much as they should, because we all know that civil conversations and good faith with the other side is the only way we're ever going to find middle ground. And I find that folks are less and less able to do that these days. Now, I will say, purely from my own observation, so I don't know if this is accurate, but it feels to me like people on the right are more willing to have dissenting opinions on their podcasts or shows than the other way around, and they're more willing to go on the podcast of someone with a differing opinion than their own. And while this is just my observation, I genuinely believe it to be true, at least on the mid to large size platforms that I consume regularly. And honestly, I think there's a simple reason behind that. Everyone who's being honest knows that liberals lead with their emotions, and that's how they formulate their opinions and make decisions. People on the right, more so than the left, like to get down to facts and logic. Those two types of personalities do not make for a good, productive, let's find some middle ground, good faith conversation, because it's almost like they're talking two different languages. I think folks on the left, especially in the progressive space that is all emotion, I think that they know that they'll be made to look like an idiot when they're talking to someone from the right, because people on the right usually have the data and facts to back things up. And I've just seen it time and time again myself. Leftists thinking they're going to show everyone what a great debater they are and coming out of the situation looking like a complete idiot. And I'm 1000% biased. I get it, but it is pretty rare. Definitely off the top of my head, I can't think of a time a right-wing person has made just a complete fool of themselves. on a left-wing or progressive podcast, especially in established folks. I don't know, maybe they've said something that people are like, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. Or on one point, they didn't really make a great argument and looked silly or something. But I think it's way more common for left-wingers to look like complete a-holes when talking to someone with a differing viewpoint. And that's why you don't see them inviting many people from the right on their shows or going on other shows with people from the right. Bringing that all back to what Andrew said, he is right. Another way of putting it, saying the same thing that Andrew did, is if he has Hasan on his show, you're getting to know Hasan. His viewers are getting to know Hasan, and casual viewers aren't getting to know Andrew, and Hasan's fans aren't getting to know Andrew. So they're having to glean how he feels about things that Hasan is saying. He's not being interviewed, Hasan is. Whereas if he followed that up with an appearance on Hasan's stream or a conversation where Hasan's interviewing him, that's the opportunity for casual fans to get to know you better. Even if they have different political opinions from you, they get to see that you're a human being just like them, and may be able to drop their guard for a little bit and say, he's not a bad guy, and I see where he's coming from. I disagree with him politically, but I think that's the way you win over people that are just not fans or on the complete different side from you. And I know Andrew's not an overly political podcaster, but it applies to him just as it applies to Tucker Carlson or Charlie Kirk or Michael Knowles, Anyway, let's get back to the video.
You got to cut it with something. You need majority capitalism. It's like a cappuccino. You know what I mean? You can't have, we're not taking espresso shots of Marxism, you know what I mean? But it's just, we like capitalism at the end of the day.
Yeah, just a fucking latte. Just, half calf.
Exactly.
Yeah. Damn, dude. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely been, mainstream media just got so, I don't know. The whole thing has been bizarre, man. Being a part of podcasting, all the strange little connections that are out there. I mean, like you were saying, Gavin Newsom just started a podcast where he's having people who kind of disagree with him when he had Charlie Kirk on.
I think it's a really smart thing.
Which is pretty wild, I
think it's a really smart thing.
We're talking about that at the beginning, and Dove,
So I'll say this about that Gavin Newsom podcast. A few things. First, he's doing a terrible job at being the governor of California. He's run the state into the ground. How does he have time to do a podcast? That's number one. Number two, I agree. It's maybe the first time in years I've said that a Democrat did something quote unquote smart. It's smart because he gets pretty hardcore right-wing figures that disagree with him politically 1,000%. And he has them on there, and he's not real confrontational. He just smiles and nods, and he'll even agree with stuff like, oh, the wokeness has got out of control, or why did you go eat at the French Laundry after you told everyone you're wearing that they couldn't go out and gather and they had to wear masks if they were eating and all this crap. And he's just kind of like, oh, takes it on the chin. Yeah, well, I knew we'd have to talk about that. Ha, ha, ha. And he's a good talker, got a good smile, looks like a politician. So while this guy's politics are insanely far left, and his actions have proven that. I mean, this is the state where a school can't tell a child's parents if they're identifying as a different gender at school. And that's how progressive this guy is. But he's giving the appearance that he's more center than he is. And I think it's really a smart move on his part. The whole Democrat Party should take notes. The final thing I think about it is it terrifies me, because people that just kind of half pay attention to politics or don't pay attention, if they just see a clip from that, it's going to appear like this guy seems like he's open to talking to the other side, and he's not a jerk, and he's got a good smile, and he's not he's relatively likable. It terrifies me because I think it could work on voters, and I think he's trying to craft an image to run for president in 2028, and a country led by Gavin Newsom is one of the scariest things I can think of, because although I probably throw it around a lot, I really mean it when I say it. I think he's an evil person. And he is like the guy, if you could make a caricature of what like a duplicitous, greedy, power-hungry, smarmy, slimy politician, Gavin Newsom is what the caricature artist would draw. So I think it's smart, and it scares me. And I don't know how he has time to do it, considering he's got kind of an important job right now that he's not very good at. But as with all Democrats, it's all about power with him. And he's looking to chase that ultimate power of the presidency. And while I think he has no business doing a podcast, he knows exactly what he's doing. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
Your producer said that, well, he felt like this was kind of Newsom's last hope too. It's like,
Yeah.
because he's probably on the way out. So unless he could do something to salvage that,
100%.
but having a podcast and just having people you don't agree with hang out with you for a while it's pretty brave.
It's also like, that's the exact word I was going to, it's like brave. You want to show bravery. And I think like, not to be political or whatever, but I think in the last, and again, I don't care about politics, but like culture is interesting to me. But I think in the last, election with the podcast run, and I just want to say, personally, I don't think that we changed the election at all.
I agree 100%.
I have no ego about that. That was decided way before us.
Yeah.
Like it maybe made people feel more comfortable voicing how they were already going to vote. But I don't think people are watching like, I'm completely flipped on this.
Yeah, that's insane also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard Andrew talk about this before where he's like, Donald Trump's appearance on my podcast or Theo or Joe Rogan, that didn't change people's vote. And when he explains it like that, I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. What I think it did is people that were maybe middle-ish and they were leaning towards I hate Donald Trump, and then you saw him being authentically himself on there and just having a human being conversation, unedited, without a script. I think it made some people like, you know what? The right's been screaming about how the media portrays this guy incorrectly, and after seeing this, I think they're right. So I think it might have softened some people on Donald Trump for good reason. I think he really did show people who he was as a person. But they suggested that Gavin Newsom doing that podcast is brave. It's not brave, but that's the fear I have, is that it could be perceived as brave. Because what's he got to lose? They said something like it's his last hope. He's at a crossroad, right? He's going to be done being governor soon. So does he take the leap and give the Democrat Party confidence in him that he can be a leader at a higher level, like running for president or something close to that? Or does he fade into obscurity? Because where do you go from governor? Or I should say fade into obscurity politically, because people are going to pay him a ton of money the rest of his life. That's why he's in politics in the first place. So, he'll become a bajillionaire like the Clintons and the Obamas. So he won't fade into obscurity on the planet, but I do believe he's at a crossroad. But we want to hear from you. What do you all think about Gavin Newsom's podcast? What do you think about what I talked about as far as my feeling that the right wing is much more willing to talk to the opposition than the other way around? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.